Mama, Mr. Drama. You say you don't need it, and yet you go and feed it. Drama.
Welp, time to sail into the uncharted territories. I don't like sports anime. It and mecha are the only genres of Japanese animation that are just not for me, mostly because I know how they work and that they usually use the same bunch of cliches, which is, while not that big of a sin if you think about it, still tires me. With sports anime, it's always young and inexperienced orangutan that likes insect sports here very much, is recently enrolled into a super duper synchronized ass-scratching academy or something along those lines, and he's immediately enlisted into the worst group, class, dormitory, and he and a bunch of random tag-alongs starts to kick asses of the local elite, possibly becoming one in the process. Add a rivalry with teachers, because unlike the elites they can't just kick their shit, or a rivalry with another academy, where his home is always the outsider, if necessary. And of course, fanbase, the blood and manure of any product. From my experience, a fanbase of any sports anime is made 2% of people who are genuinely interested in this sport, 5% from just passerbys, 25% of fans of other anime that came to tell you that your anime is shit, and the rest 68% screaming hordes that want to see their favorite characters to violently fuck each other in the ass. Because of this, I always thought that asking my opinions about a sports anime is like asking a Buddhist opinions about Consolamentum. Still, when I heard the reaction my female employer had on Yuri on Ice, that sounded like a hellish mix of a human cry, roar of an angry bull, and manatee's mating call, I realized that if I want to have a new mask this spring, I will have to review it. So I watched it, and Keijo that went in the same season, I think, and now we will compare the two, even if you think that the comparison isn't exactly fair. My show, my rules. In case if the opening and the logo wasn't obvious enough, Yuri on Ice is an anime about figure skating, which by itself is a pretty interesting choice considering that skating is one of those sports that never gets enough attention in the media, because if I want to see people in pretty costumes jumping on ice, I will travel to Norway and watch their military parade. Keijo, on the other hand, is an anime about, well, Keijo, a new sport where females in swimsuits must force each other out of a circular ring in the middle of a swimming pool using only their asses and breasts. So essentially a slightly complicated sumo for gymnasts. The first reaction most people will probably have about this anime is boobs, which I think is a little bit unfair towards Keijo. If fucking ice dancing, bobsleigh and StarCraft are considered sport, why can't this be? Putin in Gazduma tells us a story about a Japanese named Yuri Katsuki that starts already as a pretty trained skater that wants to win a Grand Prix, and after a series of circumstances, he gets Viktor Nikiforov, a 5-time skating champion and a super homosexual, as his personal trainer that openly states that he's doing this because he wants our protagonist. I mean, just look at this face. This is the face of a man saying, "I will fuck you tonight, and without a condom." But unfortunately, not everything is so awesome, because evil Russian Yuri also wants a piece of that ass, and so a rivalry ensues between them that quickly turns into a friendship. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, there are Russians in this anime, and you know what that means? Be prepared to witness all sorts of butchering of local language. That is fine to Japanese and Western barbarians, but Russians? Ah, fuck Russians! They're all stupid and their ice skaters all use heroin or whatever the fuck they do there. Meanwhile, Oz tells us about Jade and Yuki and, no, wait, wrong anime. Remember what I said about sports anime earlier? All of that, only forgot to mention that apparently they all use techniques straight out of Naruto or Dragon Ball Z. Characters in Grandpa and Grandma are surprisingly well written. I think I should warn anyone who haven't watched this yet. This anime tells a story about homosexuals and their homosexual love of homosexuals, no matter what people might say about it. And although there are no scenes of clear penetration, every single character arc can be more or less summed up as such. But unlike Japanese stuff made specifically for that, there is no unnecessary drama. Yuri, and Victor's relationship is pretty romantic, in a classical, literally meaning of the term, for which the writers should be rewarded. Like comedy, it takes talent to write a romantic story from which people won't want to bath. Meanwhile, BJ's main protagonists are Naruto, Shikamaru Nara, Orihime, and Nico Robin. There was also a character named Kawaii Cannabis, but that's all I can remember. Both titles suffer from the same thing. Every named character is colorful, pretty, has his own techniques, speaking style, and inner monologues about how fucking awesome he is. And somewhere in the middle of the show, you just start turning your brain off during these scenes and skip large parts of the cast entirely. There are no homosexuals here, but there is an ungodly amount of fan service. But what did you expect from a show about girls punching each other with their asses? And since authors clearly knew their target audience, they also shoved all manners of references to other titles, from not that obvious to in your face, bitch. bitch.
And the last thing worth talking about is the graphics, average in both anime. In Pitya, this is especially noticeable during the figure skating scenes. It's like their movement lacked either speed or animation frames, so I could clearly see the moments where the aforementioned frames were changing, which was slightly annoying. In Mansada, every single strike was accompanied with bright colors and flashes that made my eyes hurt and head wobble. This was made deliberately, in the first one to demonstrate the smoothness of the character's moves. Otherwise, the audience would simply miss all those tollops, salchos, and the difference between them. In second one, it was made to demonstrate the characters or their technique's strength. From a practical standpoint, I see the reasoning behind it, but what difference does it make if most people are watching this show for entirely different reasons? At its worst, both animes are just mediocre flicks whose only redeeming qualities are their theme and the fact that fan service and non-traditional sexual relationships will always be popular, because let's be honest here, none of you who watched this show will go lift weights or on an ice rink afterwards. You'll go write fanfiction depicting characters doing something lewd. But at its best, these two animes are pretty awesome advertisement for sports, usually glossed over by mass media, and if you discard your typical Christian bigotry, shows a decent example of how to write human relationships or a perspective sport. Which one of those is more accurate is up to you to decide. As for me, watching these two animes reminded me of the time I watched a girl try to eat a bowl of spaghetti with a big dildo. Entertaining to watch, but overall pointless and stupid.